Your hips are your body's protector. Part 2, let's talk anger. Anger gets a really bad rap, especially in Western culture. But actually, in most Eastern psychology, anger is a really positive thing because anger is protection. Typically, when you have anger, you have something underneath it. The anger is protecting you from feeling whatever is beneath it. A lot of the times it's grief and intense sorrow. Sometimes it's guilt and it's shame. And oftentimes for our body and for our mind, it's easier to feel anger than it is to feel whatever emotion is beneath it, which is why it's a protectionist emotion. But it's not negative. So in traditional Chinese medicine, anger is associated with the liver. And it's associated with a healthy assertive energy. So not a negative assertive energy, but it's associated with boundaries, with self-protection. It's really only problematic when it has nowhere to go. And we'll come back to that. So in nervous system terms and in somatic terms, anger is a mobilizing emotion. Anger gives us the energy that we need to respond to a threat. It's functional. But most people, especially women, are societally trained to suppress their anger because it's seen oftentimes, especially in Western society, it's seen as a negative thing. And so what that means is that that anger has nowhere to go. It stays in our body. And where does it stay? It stays in the same muscles that were already bracing for the threat in the first place. The iliopsoas complex and the pelvic floor muscles. Let me say that again. When anger has nowhere to go, when it's suppressed and we're not allowed to feel it or talk about it, it stays in the same muscles that were bracing for the original threat in the first place. The iliopsoas complex and the pelvic floor muscles. It stays there and it causes those muscles to continue bracing. It continues to send a threat signal to those muscles even if you are no longer technically under external threat because you have not expressed your anger that is supposed to be protecting you. So the hips are your body's protector in so many ways. The hips are the ones that respond to the original threat, and the hips are the ones that store the anger, which protects you from future threats, protects you from the emotion underneath those threats, and is just supposed to protect you in general by setting boundaries and keeping you from something that you feel is dangerous, right? When we feel that something is dangerous, oftentimes our first emotion is to get angry, and that's for a reason. Anger is protection. So in traditional Chinese medicine, anger, when it has nowhere to go, the energy or the qi of anger stagnates in the liver channel or the liver meridian. And that liver channel runs directly through pelvic territory, through the psoas, the iliacus, and the pelvic floor muscles. So there is a link between the Western nervous system regulation and somatics teaching and the Eastern traditional Chinese medicine. And that's what I love so much about this, is that bridge and that link. It makes sense in both methodologies. So like I said in the last video, how this can manifest in practice is obviously a lot of tension in the pelvic floor and in these muscles that you can feel, like physical tension, physical pain. It can also manifest as worse cramping when you have your menstrual cycle. A lot of people who are diagnosed with endometriosis, because of the level of pain of their cramping without actually getting some kind of scan, sometimes I'm not saying every time, but a lot of the times, it is also because of pelvic floor dysfunction, and pelvic floor dysfunction can come directly from this. A lot of other issues with pelvic floor dysfunction, and I can make a whole other video if you guys want me to get into that. So, what can we do about it? A couple things. First thing is acupressure. You can do self-acupressure, and I'm going to show you. So you have a liver meridian point. The source point of the liver meridian is called LV3, okay, liver point 3. And I'm going to link a picture here, but basically it exists. I don't know if you can see my toes, but basically it exists in the intersection of the bone of the first muscle, or the first bone of the toe and the second bone of the toe. So if you bring both of your fingers to your two toe bones and you bring them down to where they start to intersect in a V, the LV3 point is right in the middle of that V. And as you press it, if it feels really, really tender, that's the correct point. So I like to do it like this with my feet up, but you can also put your feet down and just like bend over and press on the point. Now you can do this with your knuckle. I like to do both sides at the same time. The same meridian is on the same side. You want to do sustained, consistent pressure for 3 to 5 minutes. I do it with a chopstick because my knuckle was getting really tired after like the third time that I did this. So I do it with a chopstick. You can also do it with a pen cap. There's also like acupressure like pens that are specific for this, but I don't really want to buy one of those, so I'm just using a chopstick. And you just really hold it on that point, breathe through it for 3 to 5 minutes. Now, there might be emotions that come up here. I want you to try your best not to analyze them with your brain. I want you to feel them in your body. You don't have to know why they're there. You don't have to know what they came from. You don't have to know that when you were 7 years old, your dad yelled at you because you did something super normal that a kid normally does, and now you feel anger that's suppressed from that, and that's the cause of this anger. Like, that is, in my opinion, that is not helpful, right? Because you can't go back and change those things. What you can do is you can feel the feeling, and that you can allow it to leave your body, and you can tell your body that you're safe by feeling it, by creating space for it, because again, anger is protection. So when I did this the first time, I felt immediate, intense rage. And I didn't know that anger was associated with this meridian or this point. So it wasn't like I was biased by my previous knowledge. I had no idea. I just knew that this point was going to help my pelvic pain. I was having really intense pelvic dysfunction and pelvic pain. And I looked it up and I did some research, and I was like, okay, well, this point is probably going to help, so I'm going to do whatever I can to help myself. And I did self-acupressure on this point. And when I tell you, like, the rage that bubbled up inside of my body, so intense. And I didn't really know what to do. I didn't know why it was there. All I knew that I needed to breathe through it. So I just breathed and I breathed and I breathed. And I got about 2.5 minutes in of the 5 minutes. And then the rage went away, and I started feeling this really intense grief, sadness, sorrow. And now I understand I'm starting my studies in traditional Chinese medicine, and I understand that the lung and the liver are paired both elementally and through their organs, and the lungs are associated with grief. So oftentimes the liver, like I said, the liver is oftentimes covering another emotion. In my case, it was grief, and that makes a lot of sense in TCM terms because it's paired with the lung, and it was compensating for the lung. And so I just felt this immense sadness, immense grief. And again, I breathed through it. I think I cried a little bit, and I kept the acupressure. And then again, I felt anger, right? And so I started to realize that there are these layers, right? Anger, emotion. It's not just like one emotion. There's so many layers, especially if you have CPTSD or developmental trauma to work through. But then after the 5 minutes, I felt so much better. And I actually, at the time, I was super constipated, and I hadn't gone to the bathroom in like 2 or 3 days, which is a long time for me. And I immediately, within 5 minutes, went to the bathroom, which was shocking. And that's what really showed me that it works. My pelvic pain went away, and it really, really helped. So I hope I'm gonna do a part 3 and talk about different yoga poses and movements that you can do to also release tension in the iliopsoas unit and in the pelvic region. So stay tuned for part 3. I hope that this was helpful to you. I hope that this is interesting to you as it is to me. I'm sending so much love. Bye.